Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome back to Mindy and the Mic from Stigma to Connection. Today's episode is packed with value, and I cannot wait to introduce you to my friend Josiah. Josiah Bonachons is a personal coach, real-life investor, and deputy treasurer for his local government. With nearly 6 years of in-government accounting and over 5 years of experience managing real estate investments, Josiah brings a wealth of knowledge to the table. His passion? Helping people master their basic finances and investing strategies while pursuing his love for golf. On top of that, Josiah serves his community as a board member for the Heartland Counseling Services and the Education Services Unit in Nebraska. In this episode, we tackle the critical connection between financial habits and mental health. Josiah shares his eye-opening insights on why financial stress is so common and how it impacts relationships, the importance of budgeting and breaking free from the spending cycle, and how small, consistent saving habits can create financial security and peace of mind. I hope that you are ready to rethink your relationship about money and mental health, because I know I did after listening to this episode and talking with Josiah. We also discuss about how our upbringing shapes our financial decisions, why instant gratification can sabotage long-term success, and practical ways to find joy and contentment without overspending. So I hope you enjoy.
I'm Mindy, and I have a microphone. So this must be Mindy and the Mic from Stigma to Connection. Let's have a conversation.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome back to Mindy and the Mic from Stigma to Connection. I have a very exciting guest today, and it's someone that we go way back because today I have Josiah Bonachons with me, and Josiah and I actually went to high school, and we went to the same high school, the same small high school if you listen to my other podcasts. And so I feel like I already know you like super well, but then we took a break after college too. So just like, we don't see each other every day, obviously, being from the same hometown and going to high school. So Josiah, how have you been?
Oh man, I've been so blessed. So blessed.
Yeah.
I think the last time when we like got to see each other a bunch was actually during your accident, after your accident.
Right.
Myself and another friend, we got to hang out. I know that was a traumatic time in your life, but it molds us into who we are. But anyway, I think that was kind of the last time.
Yeah. And we went to the same wedding. I remember you at a wedding.
Oh
We had a
yeah.
mutual friend that we saw each other at a wedding. So I was like,
Gosh,
oh,
I
there's
love a
Josiah.
wedding. I love
Yes.
weddings.
So what have you been up to these days? What do you do for a career, etc.?
Yeah, so I after graduating high school, I went to a local college here in the Midwest, and I studied actually finance. Got a business degree in finance. Then I got out of that and I joined local government. I always said I would probably never be in the government. I have some interesting views there, anyway. But that's where my path and kind of the journey led me. And so I do accounting for our local city. And I run our utility office as well. So we bring in, all those lovely things. So I see some very interesting people, some heartbreaking situations. Obviously we turn people off in utilities. But yeah, so that I do that. I've been doing that now almost 6 years, I want to say, ever since college.
Yeah.
And then I do investments, kind of some personal finance coaching and on the side. So that's really my passion. And the city job pays the bills, I guess.
Yeah. What made you want to get into that? Because I guess we never really talked about in high school, like what did Josiah Bonachons want to do after he grows up? But what made you want to be in money?
Well, let's just say never. I play the Justin Bieber song, Never Say Never, because I always said I'm never going to be an accountant. That's what I am. Which I'm not a CPA, but I do all of the accounting normal stuff. So I'm not public. Then I said that I can't stand working for the government. And I work for the government. So I'm way too much of a people person to be in a back room. So luckily I have the utility side. But actually when I was a young child, my dream job was to be the president of a bank.
Really?
And the reason is I thought that it would be so cool to be able to run a bank and just deal with money all day. And so then, I actually worked in a bank during college for a little while, got some experience there, realized I don't know if this is really what I want. I did the teller, which is not
Yeah.
really banking, but it's a good experience. And so now I, do this stuff with the city. And, it's where the Lord has put me at this point in my life. Perfectly fine with that, blessed with that. And, if I can help people in other ways, that's my goal.
Yeah, yeah. And so you probably have seen just a lot of different, or you probably have heard a lot of different stories regarding money, correct? And have seen a lot of
Yeah.
different people in different places.
Oh yeah.
When,
Yeah.
like, how have you seen just money impact people mental health wise?
Money causes a lot of stress. It's one of the number one causes probably of stress in America. It's also one of the top causes of divorce in America. I believe that it's because couples with money, usually one does the money, the other one does not.
Mm-hmm.
And so that causes stress. The other way it causes stress is the couple is one is a spender and one is a saver. They're not on the same page. So they have a tough time balancing that. Sometimes even one of them can become envious of the other one because they spend all the money. The other one saves all the money and they're like, why aren't you helping me? And the other one's like, why aren't you enjoying life? They're
Yeah.
both admirable goals, right? We all want to enjoy our life. That's why we have money. That's why there is money. But it also causes a lot of relationship grief. And the other thing that people don't realize is they think if I had more money, my life would be easier. My life problems would be solved. That is not the case. We see that in the lottery. How many people go to the lottery, win the lottery, or expect to win the lottery, and their life gets turned upside down, or they become broke relatively quickly? That's because they don't have the money management skills, which we can get into that. It's just that it's sad to see, but I do think that money problems, they don't go away with more money. They just get bigger. So you get more zeros added on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is a lot of correlation between money and mental health.
I feel like too money handling is a skill, and that's probably why you went to. I forgot your graduate degree, but as you're working in it now, you can understand that it's a skill that we have to steward and then we have to learn too. So
Yeah,
I
it
just feel
is.
like, yeah, yeah. I just feel like the correlation between like mental health and how we handle our money, there's so much intersecting bit and overlap
Yeah.
to it. Have you found in your personal life just how money has impacted your mental health in any way?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been very blessed with my finances. So I don't have a lot of day-to-day money stresses. I'm very thankful for that. I will say it gives you different stresses. So when you have, like I
Mhm.
alluded to, I do a lot of investing and I have some property myself that I rent to other people. And so that causes other types of stress. Uh, so that can be, it can weigh on you, especially if someone has a problem or if they can't pay you, or they're running into a financial hurt, or you have bills, or the water heater breaks, or you have a roof that you need to replace. Those are all things you have to prepare for, and a lot of times you have to prepare for years for some of that stuff. And if you're not prepared, that can cause a lot of strain. So it's definitely important to have cash backed up, right? An emergency
Mhm.
fund. It's a very
Mhm.
important thing.
Yeah. How do you personally handle the stress? Like just with money, whether it's in business or personal life? What's something that you do to just decompress and not have that looming in the back of your head too?
Sure. Yeah. So I one important thing is that I pray about it.
Mm.
The other thing is I have good advisors. So people that I can talk about things through and decide what's the best option for this or how should we handle this. The other thing I was going to say is it's important to know where your dollars go. A lot of money stress is because people don't know where their paycheck went. Most people get
Mm.
paid and they get with a paycheck. That's where the vast majority of their income comes from. And so they sit there and they think, well, we make all this money. Let's just say $50,000. And they get done at the end of the 2 week cycle and they're waiting for their next paycheck and they realize they have no money.
Hmm.
And they sit there and think, well, where did it all go? What did I spend it on? I spent it on my utility bill. I spent it on my cell phone bill. I spent it on my car loan. I spend it on coffee, we're eating out, groceries, gas, and it's just so many people now struggle with the basics of getting, they have to get to the next paycheck to even feel like they've moved anywhere. And so that's really important is knowing where your money goes. For me, with that's like with budgeting, to me it's my permission to spend. And so I know I have X amount of dollars to spend on food or eating out, enjoying my time with friends because I know I've got all my savings done. I've got all my bills paid. And so it gives me a sense of relief, right? It de-stresses. So many times I see people where they go, I don't know how I'm going to make it through this weekend. Or I just went and spent $100 at the bar Friday night, and now I have no idea how I'm going to pay for groceries for my next week. And that's, first of all, it's choices. But second of all, it is hard to remember, in that split moment, you want that satisfaction, right? And it's hard to remember we've got to plan a little bit, not even long term, just for the month. Let's get that started. And that's really important.
Yeah, yeah. Why do you think that is that so many people financially, they just don't have an understanding? Is it the education system? Is it just the family tradition of not knowing or?
Yeah, you've hit two of them for sure. Yeah, for sure. So let's take them one at a time. The education system. Well, there's a lack of education system, right? Nobody talks about money. Now, our high school, we actually did have a personal finance course. Now, granted, it was all about the teacher, right? So if the teacher was good at money management themselves, they were probably going to teach you good money management skills. If we don't have that, though, our society tells us we need to rely upon our parents, right? If no one else teaches you anything in life, who's your teacher? Your parents. If nobody teaches you to look both ways to cross the street, who tells you that? Your parents. Who tells you not to touch a hot stove? Your parents, because no one else is going to necessarily tell you those things. The same thing with money applies, right? If we don't have anybody else to tell us this thing, then we rely on the parents. Well, the problem is, and this is one of the reasons I think why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, is we expect that poor parents or people who can't necessarily manage their money, it doesn't have to be poor. There's high income people who have no money and no money management skills. But people who have poor money management skills will then give their ideas or their ways of managing money to their kids. Well, why should we expect that they're going to give them good money management skills and ideas when they don't practice them themselves? And then the opposite is true. People who have good money management skills, who may not make a lot of money, can then teach their kids better money management skills and hopefully create this generational wealth cycle where they can really start to get ahead.
Yeah.
The third one, I would say, is instant gratification. Our world is full on instant gratification. And so if you see a car that you want, you go decide how much those payments are and you see if you can do it. And if you can pay for it, let's do it. It's instant gratification. No longer do we have to sit and save the money and buy the car. Same thing as we used to have what's called Christmas savings accounts at banks. People would open Christmas savings account. They were specific for this. They would set up an automatic transfer and you would automatically save a little bit of money every month, starting in January through the year. And then at December, the bank would then give you access to that money so you could spend it on Christmas. And we don't do that anymore because A, we don't save, and B, we have a credit card. Why do we need to save it? We can put it on a credit card. And it's sad because then you're paying for Christmas in February and March when you should be preparing for other things, maybe a family vacation.
Yeah. And I don't know I have so many questions, Josiah, just about money and mental health, but I don't know I don't know your opinions about credit cards. And I know this is a personal opinion too. And not saying that people should rip them up, even though Dave Ramsey would say that. I remember that from high school.
Right.
But I have seen in my years as a clinician, even though I'm just starting out with private practice, the main thing with stress is really that credit card debt. People cannot get under it, or they cannot get on top of it, actually.
Man, it is so intense. So Dave Ramsey, his idea of the credit card is obviously radical. Okay. Most people would say, have cut up your credit cards, never use them. And people would say, well, what about the rewards? You know, or what about the, you know, it's just the convenience. What about the travel benefits? Well, those are all valid points. Okay. Now Dave says you spend more money on plastic than you do cash. Perfect. Okay. But if we move all that aside, who Dave is talking to is people who literally have no money, who blow all their money on credit cards, and they are drowning in debt, like you're talking about. These people who are stressed out, they have to put their utility bill on a credit card to pay it every month. Okay, those are the people that you will never get ahead, because, you know, if everybody says the stock market will get 10% this year, 20% this year, a credit card's average interest rate right now is 25 to like 29% a year. That's an amazing rate of return. If you could get that on your investments, go do that all day. But nobody can, not consistently, and probably not legally. Now, there's some ways probably to do it. But, you know, you think about that. If you pay that off and no longer are paying a 25% interest rate, you've just saved yourself 25%. You've made 25% of your money, basically, saving interest. Yeah. And so it's really important to get rid of that stuff. The other thing is you get hit with late fees on credit cards if you even pay a minimum payment. So that increases your APR, or your annual percentage rate, even higher. And it's a spending cycle, right? So you pay off part of it. Okay, let's say you paid a payment of $200 to your $1,000 credit card bill. Well, probably $40 of that is going to the principal. 120 of that, or excuse me, 160 of that's going to the interest. Okay. Well, that's then your payoff is going to happen. You'll sooner or later pay it off, right? That $1,000. But the problem is then people spend on it some more that month because they had to pay their utility bill. Well, if they paid their utility bill now for $100, they're now back up, and their balance has now increased more than what they just paid off on principal. And so they're never going to get ahead in that situation. Now, I'm using arbitrary numbers, but it's the idea of it. And so what Dave tells people is stop spending on the credit cards. Let's pay them off, get that interest back, and let's start paying them towards other things like your bills. And that's really important. So I do have credit cards. I don't have credit card debt. I do not believe in credit card debt. I think it's atrocious. And if you have credit card debt, you need to get rid of it. And then you need to probably get rid of your credit cards for at least a while until you make good, solid financial strides that say, I do not need a credit card to survive because I can pay cash, or I can pay with my debit card. And then we might be able to work that in later once you have developed those good habits.
On the personal question, does the credit score really matter for people listening, would you say?
That's a good question. Okay. On applying for credit cards, sure, it does. Now, Dave Ramsey, bringing it up again, he says, you know, the credit score is the I love debt score, which I think is hilarious because it really is. It doesn't have anything to do with how necessarily little debt you have. It's more about how much you've utilized your debt.
Oh,
so
okay.
I need to refresh my mind, but the credit score is made up of, I believe, 5 or 6 items, okay, that make up the score. It's your payment history, it's your debt utilization. So that means how much outstanding credit you have divided, or excuse me, how much debt you have outstanding, like your payment, divided by how much total credit you have available. So if you have a credit card of $5,000 credit limit and you use 1,000 of it, your credit utilization ratio is 20%. 1,000 divided by 20 by 5,000. That's a big chunk of it. Your payment history is a big chunk of it. Your time of credit, so how long you've had credit accounts, that'd be loans, credit cards, auto loans, personal loans, anything like that. And I think a couple other items, but those are the big ones.
Yeah.
So They matter in the sense of, can you get a credit card? You can get better ones if you have a higher score. The way people really think about credit score is they think about it in mortgages, right? So they sit there and think, if I don't have a credit score or a good credit score, I'm not going to be able to get a mortgage. Okay, first of all, you can do manual underwriting with no credit score. So that means they look at your actual assets, your income. Now, most banks don't want to do a manual underwriting. It's long and it takes more math, honestly. But it's possible. It's what they used to do for hundreds of years before the credit card score.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing is, if you have a credit score, they think, well, I'm going to get a better terms. Well, on a personal loan, on an auto loan, yes, that's going to probably matter more than on a house. On a house purchase, they're so regulated I'm talking as your primary residence. It's so regulated by the government that basically if you're over a 700, you're going to be in the best threshold possible. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're under a 700, probably to about a 600, you're going to be in the next best threshold or best level. And then if you're under that, you're going to be at another level. So really, if you're trying to get a mortgage, get above a 700, you're going to probably have the best rates and the best advantages, which is basically going to give you an advantage on points and your interest rate. That's about it. For your credit score.
Interesting. And then I feel like the marketing in the society just doesn't talk about that stuff either. And we don't break it down to the simple of like, the more debt you have, the more that you have to think about how you're going to pay that debt off. And people just don't think about that when they have a credit card. They're like, oh, let's spend this. Let's go here. Let's go that. Yeah.
And it's crazy. People who can get access to debt are people who don't need the debt.
Yeah.
People who need the debt because they can't pay for something can't afford the debt. And that's how banks are structured, right? They're going to look for people who have assets, who have good income, who don't have a lot of debt, who have a good payment history. Those people don't really need the debt, but they can service the debt. Where people that, like, if you use a credit card a lot and you're paying your normal bills, they're just making money off of you. But, you're kind of a high risk for them. But who cares? You're making 25% on the person. So at that point, they don't really care. And it's sad to see people do that.
Mm-hmm. So how do you approach like emotionally charged financial decisions? You talked about it, like instant gratification. Like, let's say you do have $1,000 and you're like, wow, I could really spend this money on anything that I want. Like, how do you stop yourself? How do you stop that instant gratification?
Sure. I think about it. That's probably one of my first ones. You got to get out of the impulse buys. Everything in our world is about impulse buying. And and the advertisements we see, right? The biggest one I think of that hits me the most is I sign up for all these emails for these companies, right? Don't want to miss a good sale. You get all these emails. So you start scrolling, you look through your emails, right? We just went through Thanksgiving and the biggest shopping weekend of the year. Okay. How many advertisement emails did you get? I probably saw 50. Just in 3 days. Okay. When you have access to more advertisements, it puts in your mind that thought of spending money on those items more often. And so what that causes you to do is it slowly wears you down to where you think, I need this instead of I want this. Let me give you an example. If you see a nice shirt that you really are interested in, and they send you an advertisement and they say, it's 20% off right now. Hey, that's a pretty good deal. But you're like, I don't know, 20% is not very good. But maybe I'll wait. They send you the next one the next day. They say, hey, we saw you were looking at this, but you didn't put it in your shopping cart. Are you sure you're not interested? The sale's only going to last another day. Then the next day they send you another email and they say, hey, if you put this in your shopping cart now and buy it, we'll give you an extra 10% off. And now you've slowly worn yourself down to where you've thought, well, 20%, that was not really a great deal, but 30%, they're giving me an extra 10%. That's a good deal, right? But you're still spending money and you need to decide how important that is. There's nothing wrong with spending money. You have to decide how emotionally it will impact you. Okay. There's the people called the minimalists. big podcasters, big influencers. They talk about what's called the emotional IQ, like the stuff, emotional IQ, all the stuff sitting around your house. You've spent good money for those things. How much emotion did it impact you? How much did it help you? How much is it wearing on you, right? Now you have to dust it. Now you have to launder it. Now you have to take care of it. You have to, comb something, whatever it is. Those things take wear down in our mental space, right? It gives us things we have to do. And if that item is not giving you the pleasure that it's supposed to give you or that you thought it was supposed to give you, then you're just going to go spend something else that you think will give you that pleasure. So my first tip on that is don't fall for the advertisements, get less advertisements. So go through your email, get rid of them. Okay. Unsubscribe from them.
Unsubscribe.
That's hard. That's hard, right? It's hard. Also subscribe to Mindy on the Mic if you haven't already. No, anyway. So the second one is we have to think about just wait. Okay. If you see something and you don't know, you don't need it, right? It's not something it's not your prescription. Okay. That you probably don't want to wait on.
Right.
But if it's something like a shirt that you can wait on, let's wait on it a day. Give it a day. See how you feel the next day when you come back and you're not so emotionally charged. See how much you need it. And then the third thing is have an advisor. Talk to somebody about it. Just bring it up casually. Bring it up to your spouse. Bring it up to a friend. Bring it up to anybody that can maybe give you some insight. I know that sounds ridiculous in some regards because it's like, it's just a shirt, Josiah. Who cares? But the thing is it exemplifies everything. Everything else goes out from that. If you start small, those bigger purchases you'll be wiser about. So those are 3 tips I would give people on the impulse buys. It's super hard. It gets me sometimes. I got to admit it.
Even though I went shopping for Black Friday the other weekend, and I'm like, man, a shirt can cost $85 if you're shopping at the right place, or up to like $120 for shoes. So you're not crazy. Things cost money.
They do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How do you make room or create space for joy and fulfillment in life without overspending?
So great question, Mindy. This question, my first thing that I thought about is joy equals contentment. Okay. There are lots of people who think that they need a bigger house, a nicer car, because their friends have it, or they see someone else driving it. And when we start to compare ourselves with other people, we lose sight of what our goals were, and we also lose sight of the blessings that we have been given. Let me give you an example quickly. There's a homeless man walking down the street. He sees a guy in a beater car, an old Toyota Camry, driving down the street. He goes, gosh, I wish I could have somewhere warm like a car to sleep in. The guy in the beater Toyota is driving down the road and looks over and sees the Ferrari that's going to pass him. And he goes, dang, I wish I had the Ferrari. The guy in the Ferrari looks and sees the house on the hill and says, man, wouldn't it be nice to be able to park my Ferrari in a garage that I can just walk into my house on the hill? And the guy in the house on the hill looks in the sky and sees the billionaire flying a private jet and says, one day I'm going to have a private jet. And I wish that would be tomorrow. The guy in the private jet thinks, what more can I do? It's just me and God up here. And so you have to look at it as perspective. God gave you whatever he gave you for a purpose. Manage it well. And don't be envious of other people, because I think that's so important, because we compare each other constantly. And that's what our society tells us to do, is we're not good enough because we don't drive a nice enough car. Mm-hmm. Or, we don't have the nicest clothing, and so we're not worth as much. And that's not true. That's simply not true.
Mm-hmm.
And if people around you are telling you that, you need to find a different person to be around, honestly, because it's wrong.
Yeah.
And it's a miserable thing to deal with. So my long story on my soapbox there is joy equals contentment. That is how I find like the fulfillment in my life. The other thing I'll mention on that is I'm always improving. Every day I want to get 1% better. Great leadership coach and pastor named John Maxwell written tons of books, and he has a thing where he gets better 1% every day. And the other thing is never stop learning. The day you stop learning is the day you die. And I believe in both of those things. They're very important. They're very simple. But 1% changes every day can magnify into hundreds of percentage improvement in a year. Do the math.
It reminds me of that book, Atomic Habits, too. Just investing one step into something, you can make a great change. But that great change comes over time.
I have that book. It's actually staring at me right now. I haven't read it. I actually have a parent who's read it. She really enjoyed it. She told me I needed to read it, so I haven't gotten to it yet.
You should.
But another good book is The Richest Man in Babylon.
Have you
ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay, super old book by Napoleon Hill. It is about an 80-page or 100-page book, easy page in an evening. It talks about 7 or 8 basically basic financial concepts that everyone should comprehend. And it's based upon a guy living in Babylon. And I should read it again because it's just it's a mindset switch that I think is really important. It's very basic. Great book to try.
Yeah. I kind of want, before I transition to, I want to ask you for some advice just for people about spending and like the spending cycle. I know we kind of touched on that before talking on this podcast, but
sure.
My first question is, in your financial journey, how has just the way you approach mental health with others, with money, how has that shaped? What have you seen just with people? And just whether you're more empathetic, whether you're less empathetic. Yeah, just tell me more about how you approach people and the financial journey that you have.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a hard question.
Mm-hmm.
One of the hardest things in all of finances, I feel like, is how to be generous to people. And so I'm going to go this different area a little bit, but it's about, because it's going to tie back into empathy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of people out there that struggle with money, super struggle with money. They always have. They probably will for a long time unless they get some help and some guidance. So many times you see those people and you want to help them and you want to say, I'll give you some money for your utility bill, or I'll give you some money to get you through this hard time, get you through Christmas. Okay. So you might do that. And the generosity is there. That if that is what your goal is, to just help them, you feel led to do that, do it. Okay. There's nothing to stop you. That is what we're called to do, to be helpful to people and to love on people. The thing you have to remember is people probably will not spend the money how you think it should be spent. Mm-hmm. But remember that what you did that is a gift. That was a gift. And so no strings attached. Okay. The other thing I would think of is when someone's struggling and when they go in cycles where they struggle constantly, you need to look at and see, how are they spending their money? Now, everyone spends our money in ways that are frivolous or stupid in other people's eyes. Okay? So you might think that buying a super expensive pair of shoes is worth it, okay? Because it'll bring you a lot of satisfaction. Another person might think you can buy the Skechers tennis shoe for $30 and it's the same. It gets you from point A to point B without getting your feet wet or cold. Point taken. But another person might think, I want to go to Scooters and get a coffee every morning and spend $7. Another person might think that's ridiculous because I could get drip to coffee at my office for free. Okay. my point in all that is people spend their money how they want to spend their money. When you assist them or help them, don't put strings on it necessarily, because it's a gift. But if you are going to help someone and you decide if you're going to help them a lot, like many times, or if this is just their cycle, if they just are always going to be struggling, and see what that can do. Because there are some people out there who get in a super tough spot because if they have a hospital bill and that destroyed their savings and now they need some help. And those would be people who I would say, give them all the help you can get of them, because they will get back on their feet and they will appreciate that more and more. Now, there are also people who probably won't take your money. But the people who always are struggling, that you feel like, should I help? I sometimes question, do I help them? And I'm saying that not as a financial like coach to help someone. I'm saying that in the sense of just as an everyday person, do I want to help this person? As a financial coach, yes, I will help anybody. Now, you have to want to help yourself, okay? I cannot manage your money for you. I can give you tips and tricks on how to manage it, how to do it, what I do. But if you don't want to change in your heart and in your mind, the other thing is, if you're married, your spouse has to change as well. You both have to be in on this. Otherwise, it will not work. So that's kind of what I would say on those things. Does that answer your question, Mindy, or do you want me to go any further?
Does. Well, I guess you've mentioned cycle, and I guess that's a good time to bring up the spending cycle too. The reason that I wanted to ask you more about that per se is just because I think our listeners, like, money is a big deal. And I think sometimes we get so emotionally charged and want to just keep spending and spending and spending because we think it's more happiness, you know? Like, if I have that car, if I have these trips, like if I go to Europe, then I will be happy. But that's not true. And like I said before, like personally, I've seen all around the board, not even in clients, that's the case for most people, is that the more we spend money, the more happier we think. Even I think like that sometimes. So I just wanted to get your advice or your insight just about, tell me more about this spending cycle that you mentioned to me about beforehand.
Yeah. So what Mindy's alluding to is what's called the spending cycle. And it's a 4-step process that I developed that basically talks about how our mindset changes throughout our journey of life, or even just throughout a month, let's say. And I'll walk you through the 4 steps. The first step is you see a couch, and that couch, you're drawn to it, look perfect in your living room. And so you decide how you're going to spend that money. And so you decide, well, do I just pay cash, or do I just use let's say a credit card? Okay. Or maybe even better, maybe they'll have financing, right? Maybe they'll give me a 0% 6 months financing on the new couch. And so you decide, you know what? I don't really have the cash. I'm going to 6-month finance this couch. So you get the couch, right? It's delivered. It looks beautiful in your living room. It fits everything so well. Perfect. Comfy. That's all we want to hear. But it was an impulse. You did a 6-month payment. Now you have a new payment. Okay. Let's say that payment's $100 a month. Your impulse purchase, okay, satisfied your craving, right? It made you happy, contentment for a short period. A few weeks pass by. The couch, you walk by it and you don't really recognize it anymore. And you decide, well, maybe I need a love seat that goes with this couch. So you go and you've now walked around and found a love seat that matches, and it coordinates so well, so perfect. But this love seat is going to cost you some more money. And so you decide, well, do I pay cash or whatever? And you realize that you have now done where you do not have the cash once again. And the reason you don't have the cash is because you now have a payment of $100 that you're putting against your income that you already were stretched thin. And so you could afford the $100 payment, but you can't save money. And so this new love seat, you're going to now have to put on another 6-month term. And so you start building these small payments up And you're like, well, I can afford the payment as long as I have my job, as long as I do this. But the problem is when we purchase these things on payments or even just on cash, what it does is it eliminates our impulse, like our need to spend for a little while, but that spending comes back up, that emotion. And so then we have to go and satisfy it again. And so what we do is we go in this endless cycle of buying these new things that we think we need, but they're wants. And it lowers our income. It lowers or it might not lower our income, but it might lower our savings capabilities. It might make it so we are more stressed because we're worried about how we're going to pay for all these things. And now ultimately it didn't satisfy us because we're like, it's just a couch, whatever. I could buy a new one. And so it puts all this financial strain on us. And it doesn't accomplish what we were hoping it accomplishes it in the long run. And so my point of this whole story is you got to really think about what you want to buy, why you want to buy it, and how much satisfaction it's going to give it to you. And the other thing is how long you're willing to pay for it. If you're going to pay for something for a long time, you better enjoy it for a long time, because the worst thing you can have is a car that you no longer own, for example, that you now have a payment still on, but your car is gone. That would be pretty miserable. So my biggest thing on that is try to save up for your next purchase, because paying cash for that couch instead of financing it is a huge difference mentally. It might not be financially. It might not make a big difference for some people, but mentally it can mean a lot, because once you've paid it, you're done. You don't have to think about it anymore. You can just enjoy it. The other thing is I like to implement either the 24 or the 72-hour impulse purchase rule. If it's above a certain threshold, which you can make it your threshold, wait 24 hours. As long as it's going to be there, which it more than likely will be there for 24 hours, wait. If it's above that threshold, give it 3 days. I know some things may not be the 3 days, so maybe make it 2 days, okay, if you need to. But try the 24 and the 72-hour rule. It really takes the emotion out of it and helps. So that's kind of the spending cycle. That's kind of the idea of it. Yeah.
Have you been caught in it?
Have I? What?
Have you been a victim of a spending cycle before?
Oh, of course. I haven't actually bought a couch like that, but I'm sure I have. Actually, it's kind of interesting. Over this weekend, I was looking at a new suit. Okay.
Yeah.
I like to dress in suits. So I found this suit. It was on sale, big sale, half off, and still a lot of money, a few $100s. Well, anyway, so I was contemplating it. I just kept measuring it, making sure it fit me, because it was online, so you can't try it on. Well, anyway, then they offered me even a 10% extra, kind of like I was describing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. Well, anyway, yeah, they really did. My emotion was high at the beginning. Okay.
Yeah.
But over the days, it's been like 3 days now, I'm no longer looking at it. I X'd out of the tab on my phone. It's no longer my internet tab. I'm not buying it. And I was concerned about the fit or whatever. But the moral of the story is my emotion was high and it became lower. And I said, am I willing to pay this price for the risk of it not fitting? Use that in whatever it is. But the satisfaction probably wasn't there anymore. At the start, I was like, man, this is going to be great. I'm going to look so fly. Anyway, but that's not how it happened. That's not realistic, right? So that's probably my best example on that.
Yeah. And then before I know that you are very, very well educated and you have the experience with money just in your career personally, but was there ever a time in your life that you just felt like pretty low or pretty down because of your finances, and you just had to like shift your mindset, and then you actively had to make a change?
Oh yeah. So when I graduated from college, what was I, 22 maybe at that point, I was making a good amount of money, from my job, right? More money than, anybody had not had a real job like after college, right? You're always working at retail or whatever. So you're making $12 an hour or $10 an hour, but now you're making, thousands of dollars, right? And you're thinking, man, I got all this money. What am I going to do with it? And it was one of those things where, I decided I have some student debt. I said, I'm going to pay it off. And I was living at home, luckily. Not everybody can, be grateful for that, but I was.
Yeah.
My parents weren't going to make me pay rent at the beginning, but I said, I'll pay you something. And they were like, no, as long as you do something effectively with your money and efficiently, that will help you. Let's, just do that. So what I decided to do is I got paid twice a week or bi-weekly.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to use one paycheck and pay off my student loans. I'm taking an entire paycheck and pay off my student loans. So I was taking half my salary and paying off my student loans. I paid off my student loans. I had about $15,000, which I know that doesn't sound like a lot to some people, but for me, it was. I worked through college. I was in the residence halls working, doing different things. And $15,000 I paid off in less than about 5 months. Yeah, I started in December, middle of December with my job, and I finished them by May. And what that did as a 22-year-old, it gave me some discipline. First of all, it said, you can do this. The second thing it did is it set me up on a very good path. And actually October, November of that month of that year, I was able to buy my first rental property. And it was actually a small apartment complex. Yeah, small apartment complex. And the only reason I was able to qualify for that loan was because I was committed to saving, which I could because I was living at home. So thankful for that once again. But the other thing is I had paid off the debt. So my debt to income ratio was 0.
Yeah.
So I could use all of that available debt to income ratio to qualify for the mortgage to buy this property.
Mm-hmm.
Now I was at the very top. I mean, I could not borrow any more money. It worked out beautifully. The thing is I wasn't screwing off. Okay. Yeah. A lot of people in their 20s goof around. They just go party, which there's nothing wrong with doing some of that stuff. I still had fun, but I just was like, no, I'm going to have fun with only this much money, not everything. And I'm going to set it aside. And so those were really important things that I did that I don't take all the credit for, because I think I had good people around me and I was blessed immensely that allowed me to do those things and set me up on a nice trajectory. So that would be probably my encouragement to people is start somewhere. We can start somewhere and you'll make it. It may take 6 months. It may take a year. But every dollar you save, it'll help you in the long run. I do believe that.
Is there any advice you would give to your younger self about balancing money and your mental health?
Probably be more focused and not get stuck in so much analysis paralysis. And what I mean by that is, I'm a very big analysis paralysis. I am a very analytical person, very much so. And I will get stuck in something. And I research stuff all day, every day, right? I hear a new concept on a podcast. I read a new book and I'm like, oh man, that is so interesting. And so I start Googling for 2 hours on a topic. And sometimes I get to a point where I'm almost more knowledgeable than the professional because they don't even pay attention to this niche topic. And it frustrates me. I'm like, what the heck? You're in this sector and you don't know anything about this. And, a couple examples of that is there's some trusts out there, some estate planning trusts that I'm very interested in. Life insurance. There's some very unique ways to structure life insurance that is different than the average ideas, which I was shocked by. But anyway, those would be some of the things is stop sitting there and just staring at a screen and thinking, I got to learn, and do some action with it. It's okay to learn. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you need to do some action because we can only get so better so much on a podcast, on reading books, on listening to things. We have to have some action. And sometimes I would think that, well, I think it's better because we'll just stop there type of thing, because, I'll just keep learning instead of, actually making that action. It's almost like where you think that you're learning is an action.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, where it's not an action.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have 2 more questions because I want all the information selfishly.
Yeah, let's go for it.
What do you think are the most harmful actions people can take when guarding financials? We talked a lot about credit and just about wrapping up debt.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Credit cards are a big one. Even just credit cards. I mean, a mortgage is a little better at least because, stuff like auto loans, that's a huge one. Oh man, I would never have thought, holy cow, I would have never thought that by this point in our lives, auto loans are actually the new mortgage of the 90s. So the price of an auto loan, like every month, the monthly payment's about $800, $840. That's like the average. That's like what a mortgage cost you in like the 90s or early 2000s. And now people are paying a mortgage of double that, but now they have an auto loan. So they almost have like a house and a half that they're trying to pay with their paychecks. So auto loans, stay away from that. Gosh, I really like the idea of paying cash for your car, or using different strategies, or at least not spending a lot of money on your car based on your income, just because that can hurt a lot of people. And a car is a depreciating asset, or a depreciating liability. Honestly, it's in no way an asset, even though we describe it as an asset. So that'd probably be the first one. Another one is never pay late fees or finance charges. There are so many people out here who are broke and they will pay late fees like it doesn't mean anything. Like even the small ones.
What happens if you don't pay them though? Don't you get
like your bills. So those are your penalties. So like people won't pay certain things. They'll just be like, oh, yeah, I forgot about it. I'll just pay the late fee, which I know you can. I mean, and you can ask, but I'm saying like you get charged $10 because you're late. Okay. Well, first of all, ask the company if they'll waive it for you. Most will on the first time. Secondly, it adds up. It adds up immensely. Think about that. You have, let's say it's a $5 charge to get, or a mailed bill. Oh man, I just had this happen to me. I had to pay $3 extra to get my Wi-Fi bill mailed to me instead of digital. Called the company about it, said, can you waive this fee? They said, no, we notified you on your last bill and you didn't do anything about it. I was like, oh, that's a little cold-hearted, but I see at your point. You gave me a warning, but I ignored you.
Yeah.
So I'll pay it. But right there, $3. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but that can buy you a half a cup of coffee.
It adds
You do that with a few bills. I mean, it adds up. Another thing is save something. That's one thing. Some people look at these big, broad goals and they go, I can't save 10% of my income. I can't save 5% of my income. How am I going to save anything?
Yeah.
What I would say to them is save $20 a week. Save something. Put it somewhere. Put it in a savings account. Put it in your underwear drawer. I don't care where you save it. Do something with it and save something. Give yourself a goal. It'll add up. Yeah. The other thing is automate savings. If you can, this is a big topic, pay yourself first. Hot topic a lot of people talk about. What that means is basically automate savings from your paycheck to go to a separate savings account when you get paid. So take your direct deposit and say it's $50, $20, 5%, 10%. And automatically direct deposit that in a savings account. And that's you're paying yourself first. You are setting that side of money for yourself. And it's your emergency fund. That's a good way to fund it right there. But also it can become your opportunity fund. You can use it for investing, use it for, whatever. But it gives you that mental space as well of I have $1,000 sitting around that I can use if everything blows up in my life and I need it. That's what I can do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Wow. Lots of good tips that I will think about and dwell on, honestly. My last question is kind of a big one, and
Okay.
I'm banking on it because you're in government, but
Let's do it.
how do you think society can be better by supporting individuals struggling with both financial and mental health challenges?
Like from a government standpoint or from
Or
what
just as a
standpoint?
society, like it's pretty open-ended. You could
Yeah.
use your
Well,
government lens, you could use your individual lens, you could even use your financial advisor lens.
right. Yeah. Well, I'm not a financial advisor, but I do love to give tips and coach people. But anyway, I would say I don't think government's great at um, telling people how to do things. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's better individualized than broad strokes, and that's what the government has to do, even at the local level. Is it's pretty broad strokes. It is more individualized there. I think it's important to teach kids strong financial education in schools. I think that's one
Yeah.
thing that like state governments could do very well on. And Nebraska actually was ranked number one in financial literacy by I think maybe U.S. News or something. Um,
Good.
and it was because they require now a financial education course, and I think that's a good start. I think that's good. Now on the mental health side, I think it is important that we correlate the two, where we
Yeah.
give people some financial education along with their mental health, because it's a hard topic and it causes people a ton of stress.
Yeah.
And so that would probably be my biggest thing, is that I think they need to be more correlated. I've never really thought about it until before this podcast. When you asked me to come on, I was like, I wonder how much that really correlates. And as I was thinking about it, looking through questions and writing things down, I was like, man, that actually, those do correlate more and more than I thought it would. And, it's kind of interesting. Dave Ramsey, he initially brought up where he started, he had classes where it was financial classes, right? Just help people with money. And slowly, as they started to develop it more and more, he goes, it's actually, we did a relationship class. Like, a lot of it stemmed from the couple's relationship with each other, and that correlated immensely to their money habits and their money struggles and their money successes. And so it's actually interesting how it's developed that more and more. So I think that's very important too.
Yeah. No, like I said before, as a therapist, it's really hard for me practically, like when clients mention a lot about like financial struggles, or when people in
Yeah.
general mention a lot about financial struggles, I can definitely address like the mental health side of like doing these coping skills, deep breathing, praying, etc. But when they talk about money, it's hard because that's something practically I can't be like, well, save $20, and
Right.
I think it integrates so much, because like I can go on the coping skill, like I know that you're depressed, let me give you some hope. But on the other side, there is a practical sense of people need to learn
Right.
financial literacy and apply it and execute it, and I can't do that for them.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And I'm connected to a big mental health practice here in my local town, and I'm going to have to talk to them a little bit and see if they deal with the same thing and see how they do that. I'll be interested to chat with them a little bit
I'm
about
glad I
that.
inspired you.
That's
Well,
right. You sure did.
well, Josiah, thank you so much for being on. Before I let you go, I have some rapid fire questions for you, if you can handle the
Okay,
pressure.
I'll try to be as rapid fire as I can. I'm probably a little long-winded at times, but that's all
It's
right.
okay. You can expand if you would like. But coffee or tea?
Let's do it. Coffee.
Coffee. Early bird or night owl?
But I do enjoy my British tea though once in a while. Anyway, uh,
early
probably
bird or
early
night
bird.
owl? Early bird.
Yeah, my friends always tell me I fall asleep at movies too late in the night, so early bird.
Dream vacation destination?
Oh gosh, somewhere where I can hike in the morning and spend the evening and the afternoon on a beach. Golly, that'd be the perfect ideal. So some mountains and a beach at the same time. It's calling my name.
And then I'm gonna assume that I think I know the answer to this one, but are you a spender or a saver?
I'm probably more of a saver.
Yeah, yeah. What's the last thing you bought?
How about you?
Oh, what? I'm both. Like my dad, he's older, so my dad grew up in the World War II era, and back then it was just save, save, save. And so, kind of what we talked about family wise, that's why I was taught from a very young age: save, save, save. Shop at the Goodwills. Why would you go to Target? So.
Oh, family dynamics and money. That is a whole nother topic. That is so intense. Oh man, that'd be a good one too.
Yeah, yeah. So you said saving, and then what's the last thing you bought?
Hair product. Can't you tell?
Good for you.
Oh gosh, I just bought a couple of hair products. It was on sale for Black Friday. Isn't that embarrassing?
No. Good for you. You take care of your hair. Good job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then who's the last person you called?
My uncle.
Oh, good.
Right before this podcast, actually. I forgot about that. We're talking about insurance, actually. I'm looking at changing insurance companies to get a better price. There's another thing. Save money by looking at insurance. Shop insurance, people. It's important. Let's do it. Let's go out there. The other thing I was going to say when you asked me about the question about last thing I bought, there's actually a practice where people will do, where they will post on social media every single item they bought for a month. And what it is it's like almost like a purge where it's kind of like, do I want to embarrass myself that much by how much I buy? So they start to limit themselves because they're like, otherwise I'm going to have to buy all this stuff. And you don't have to go extreme like to social media. Send it to a friend or a couple of friends or your family. And it opens your eyes to see how much you've bought, because a lot of us think of ourselves as minimalists, but let's see how minimalist we really are.
Yeah, yeah. That's an interesting idea. I might try that, but I probably won't post it on TikTok or Instagram. I probably will just send it to my friends.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Josiah, thank you so much for coming on Mindy and the Mic. And I bet our my listeners will enjoy it too. Just gain some money making tips or saving as well.
I hope so. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. And if they do have any questions that they send to you, I'll be happy to answer them.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You guys have a great night.